that event. Okay, so most of you are new this year to our event, which is awesome. So we have a great day a great schedule planned for everyone today with some different speakers coming in. We have some legislators that are going to be joining us in the 11 o'clock hour, and then also after lunch, and some speakers from the other homeschool organizations that are here today. I am a former public school teacher. I taught for 11 years, 8th grade English language arts for 11 years, and then decided 2020 happened, and I had my second child, and my husband and I decided it would be best for me to stay home and homeschool my kiddos. So now I am also a proud homeschool mom. I have 3 girls, and I just am so excited about this event today. So I wanted to point out a couple of things for you. You should have gotten these. There is a PA Capital scavenger hunt, and so this is just fun to go around and find the different places on this grid around the Capitol and to see the different locations, different things that are scattered around. Some are even right out these back doors here, the East Wing lobby. There are 2 trivia worksheets. There's one about the Capitol and one about Pennsylvania, and even answer keys on the back, but don't cheat and just go right to the answer keys. And an all about Pennsylvania little worksheet as well if you want to fill it out. I do homeschool, but I cannot take credit for those. Those were Jess's ideas. So I would like to invite Jessica Treichler to come up and share a little bit about Pennsylvania Coalition for Informed Consent and some of the things that we advocate for here at the Capitol.
Thanks, Stevie. Good morning, parents and homeschoolers. My name is Jessica Treichler. I am a member of Pennsylvania Coalition for Informed Consent, or PCIC's steering committee, and I'm the leader of the legislation committee. I want to welcome you to our homeschool day at the Capitol. We have excellent speakers lined up for you today and several activities for you all to enjoy. 15 years ago, someone began planting medical freedom seeds in my head while I was pregnant with our first. Unfortunately, we made the decision to selectively vaccinate, never went sick, 1 injection at a time, and months in between each vaccine. As a result, my son is vaccine injured and will probably rely on my husband and I, as well as his siblings, for the rest of his life. Luckily, our eyes were opened and we learned from our mistakes and have 3 other healthy children. 10 years later, I found PCIC, and I knew I had to get involved. I helped form the Capitol Area Chapter Group in 2019 and later moved to the steering team in 2021. Enough about me though. In case you are not familiar with PCIC, I want to begin by reading our mission statement. The mission of PCIC is to preserve the vital personal freedom and human right to informed consent, privacy, and choice for medical procedures in Pennsylvania, and hold our legislators accountable to their sworn duty to uphold the freedoms declared in Pennsylvania's Constitution. We host monthly lobby days at the Capitol when our legislators are in session. Stevie and I organize these days, from making appointments with legislators to determining what needs our immediate advocacy attention. Even today, some of our advocates are around the Capitol advocating to amend a bill that would permit pharmacists, interns, and pharmacy technicians to administer any of the childhood vaccines to those 5 and up. Anyone passionate about medical freedom, including children, are invited to join us at the Capitol on any of our lobby days. No experience is required. Over the last year, our advocacy efforts have helped influence several bills, including a Lyme disease bill that would have infringed on parental rights, if not for our due diligence and ability to convince lawmakers of much-needed amendments. A data privacy bill geared towards minors has been halted as of now. The bill was gutted to exclude parental rights. And we surprisingly found ourselves advocating for a bill that required patient consent for pelvic exams while going under anesthesia for a completely different procedure. meaning pelvic exams in Pennsylvania were being done without consent under anesthesia. Can you imagine? This bill was fortunately signed into law in November of 2023. Recently, we have found ourselves advocating against a mental health platform called Youth. This platform from the UK markets itself as a free, safe, and anonymous online mental well-being community. We are the very first state in the US to pilot this platform. It was signed by the Department of Human Services, a $3 million grant in October of 2022. This program is currently in 20 school districts across Pennsylvania. However, if your child is given access to the web, they can go to CUE as a homeschooler and sign up for it. No parental consent is needed if your child is 14 and up. Parents, this mental health platform has many red flags, including, but not limited to, gender ideology, data mining, peer influences, such as 18-year-olds giving 11-year-olds advice on message boards. Communicating with youth team members by texting or emailing via their platform. There are 0 face-to-face interactions, not even by Zoom. There is no long-term data, and in one article they admit little is known about the effectiveness and potential harmfulness of online support. If you wish to read more about COOF, please visit our blog post, Does Your Child Have Access to This Experimental Mental Health App? We also discovered last year why homeschoolers were being asked at a higher rate than usual to provide immunization records. In August of 2022, the Division of School Health sent an update to all schools that there would be an upcoming changes made to the School Immunization Law Report, or SILR. That update read, for the 2022 to 2023 school year, there will be changes to the SILR reporting. Homeschool students will be reported separately on database entries with an additional group of columns added, meaning that you would be separated from public school into a homeschool category. Please make sure you have all homeschool students' immunization data and exemptions available for this reporting. This led to us investigating where this data goes once in the hands of the state. Anyone want to take a guess where it goes? Think of an agency. The CDC. So it's reported to the CDC, and they actually have an interactive map on their website for every state and how many exemptions are used among children in kindergarten and 7th grade. Alarming, right? Moving on, PCIC hosts tables at various events such as CHAP Homeschool Convention, Family Days on the Farm in Lancaster, Science Uncensored, and more. Our steering team members have been on various podcasts, and our own steering team member, Stephanie Coxon, even co-hosts her own podcast, Two Women Inspiring Real Life, known as Twirl, on American Out Loud News. Stephanie has also spoken at many events across the state for us. And finally, in just under a month, we will be releasing our primary election voter guide with the help of volunteers across the state. Speaking of volunteers, we are always in need of new volunteers. Our volunteers are crucial in our success, from writing blog posts, emailing candidates health freedom surveys, calling or emailing legislators to set up appointments, content creators, photographers, and the list goes on and on. If you have a talent that you are willing to share with us, or maybe you just want to help behind the scenes from the comfort of your own home, please reach out to us. You can find us on the web at www.informedconsentpa.org, or Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, or Twitter. Lastly, thank you parents for taking the time to bring your children out to this important event. We hope that you will love this event event as much as we love hosting it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jess. So as you checked in, you probably noticed that we have some other homeschool and parental rights organizations joining us today. So we have, in addition to our table, our PCIC table, where you can find lots of really good information about medical freedom, in the East Wing Rotunda, there's also HSLDA is here as well, and Parental Rights Foundation. So be sure to stop and chat with the representatives from those tables, and you'll also have the opportunity to hear from them today as well. And in fact, we have Will Estrada with us here today. Will is the Senior Counsel for HSLDA, and he is assigned to Pennsylvania. So if you're a member of HSLDA, you likely recognize his name and face if you open up the emails that we get from him. We had one just last week, and I opened it up and I read it, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that Will is on top of this. Will was also with us in 2022 when we had our first homeschool day here at the Capitol when he was in his role with the Parental Rights Foundation. You're a homeschool graduate, right? And from Pennsylvania. And he began his career with HSLDA in January 2004 as a legal assistant. And then after graduating from Oak Brook College of Law and Government Policy with his Juris Doctorate in 2006, he moved on to direct HSLDA's Federal Relations Department and serve as HSLDA's federal lobbyist. He also worked as a career federal employee in the Office for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services from 2018 to 2021, which I think I would love to sit down and hear about some of your experiences from that part of your career. In November 2021, he resigned and joined the parentalrights.org and Parental Rights Foundation. And then in June of 2023, went back to HSLDA as one of their senior counsel. So we are so thankful to have him with us today. We're gonna have some time hearing from him this morning, and then I will be back to give us some directions about getting a group picture together. So Will?
Thank you so much, Stevie. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, PCIC, for having me here today. I want to start off by just thanking you, each and every one of you, kids, moms and dads, parents, for coming out today, because you are like the Navy SEALs of homeschoolers and of people for informed consent. You know, there's tens of thousands of homeschoolers in Pennsylvania. There's hundreds of thousands of engaged citizens and parents, but you all took the time to fight through traffic, to find a parking space, to maybe have a quick breakfast, and to come out here to represent homeschoolers and parents and the Coalition for Informed Consent. So thank you for taking the time to come on out here. Stevie, thank you so much for having me. Jessica, thank you so much for having me. I love the work that PCIC is doing. You're going to find out why in a few minutes. I want to recognize Jane White. Jane is our senior legal assistant from Homeschool Legal Defense. She came up with me this morning. She's also a homeschool graduate. She's much smarter than me. She went to Patrick Henry College. My SAT scores were not good enough to get into Patrick Henry College. So make sure you you come and say hi to Jane as well. And then Stevie, wave, where's Stevie? There's Stevie. Wave to me and just come and hook me and grab me when it's time for me to stop, because I'm a lawyer. Lawyers like to talk, and it's far more important that you go and meet with your elected officials, that you get your picture as well. So let me start off by just telling you a little bit about myself. I'm a homeschool graduate from Bradford County, Pennsylvania. Back when I was being homeschooled, I'm the oldest of 8 kids. The school districts never asked for our immunization records. It's, of course, a vague section in the homeschool statute that says that you have to provide evidence of immunizations and medical and dental visits. Our position at Homeschool Legal Defense is your notarized affidavit or your unsworn declaration is sufficient evidence, but I always tell people, and you're going to get free legal advice here, that there's never been a court case that said if we're right or if the school districts are right. So whenever parents call me, I say, well, your first question is, do you want to be the test case? Because we'll be here to represent you and to take it, but you have to decide if you want to be the test case. And so I'm guessing you guys, being the brave, Navy SEAL homeschool parents that you are, you guys would be willing to be the test case. So I've got my business cards here with me. Let's talk afterwards, because we're seeing a massive increase, as you all know, in school districts demanding these immunization information. I'll talk about that more in a little bit, but first I want to tell you why I'm so passionate about the work that you're doing. So after I was homeschooled, I went to law school. As Stevie said, I went to Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I loved the work that I was doing for 14 years. I served homeschoolers in Washington, D.C. I drafted a law that Congress passed, that President Obama signed into law, saying that homeschoolers were eligible to enlist in the military. They didn't have to take the GED. Their parent-issued homeschool diploma was sufficient. In 2018, however, I had worked on the Trump administration campaign. I had been on the landing team and working on some of the policies that went into place, but I didn't end up going into the administration. And then some of my friends were at Health and Human Services in the Office for Civil Rights, and they were saying, we're having so much fun, we're doing some great work on, religious freedom, conscience rights, particularly in healthcare, particularly for healthcare providers, but also when it comes to immunization freedom. And they said, we're looking for career employees. Now, if you are a career employee, you call yourself a career civil servant. If you are not a career employee, you say those are the bureaucrats. So I had an opportunity to go in as a bureaucrat. Kids, anyone know what a bureaucrat is? A bureaucrat is someone who's very well paid because your parents pay taxes and they write regulations. What they would say they do is implement what Congress has passed into law and the president has signed into law. So I loved the next 2 years. I worked on protecting civil rights. We often think of civil rights as like, ending segregation, for example, but they're also much broader. They're protecting religious freedom, conscience freedom, the rights of doctors and medical personnel, and also medical students to not be forced to violate their conscience when it comes to health and human services. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has more funding than the U.S. Department of Defense. It's actually the largest federal agency, so I was right there in Washington, D.C. in the Humphrey Building, which is a brutalist architecture, kind of an ugly Soviet-style building. I brought my kids by when I first got in, and they said, Daddy, that's a beautiful building. Look at all the windows. And I sort of looked at it, and I was like, well, okay, I guess I can see what you mean. But then, kind of everything changed, and the Biden administration came in. Now, as a bureaucrat, I feel very strongly that when the people vote, you serve the elected office. Of course, we had many career bureaucrats who were the whole resistance movement during the Trump years, but thankfully none in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights. And so I said, well, I'm going to do what the president, now the Biden administration wants, and immediately things changed. I probably shouldn't say this, Stevie and Jessica, you're probably going to tar and feather me for saying this. I was on the team that worked on the OSHA vaccine mandate, which of course went up to the U.S. Supreme Court and was struck down. And our initial draft, when we got it back, I was like, there's no religious freedom protections in here. So we wrote a very strong religious exemption, and actually the Biden bureaucrats at the Office for Civil Rights signed off on it, and then it got stripped out in the White House when it went through the final approval. But more and more I was becoming miserable with the work that I was doing. I was like, I've only been in the federal government for 3 years. This is going to be terrible. I feel like every day I'm giving up my values of what I believe in. And then do you guys remember the COVID vaccine mandate that came first for the federal career employees? And so I was like, well, I don't want to lose my job. Maybe I'll just get the vaccine. And my wife, who has much stronger views on this, is why we've actually been kicked out of a pediatrician's office. And she was like, see ya, we're going to go find a doctor who agrees with our views on immunizing our own children. My wife said, Will, we've been married, it was 16 years. We've been married for 16 years. There's 2 things you can't do. You can't go skydiving, and you can't get the COVID-19 vaccine. I was like, okay, well then I won't, because I'm going to listen. I'm a wise man. Guys, if you ever get married, you should listen to your wives. I was like, all right, so what should I do? So I'm a lawyer, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to write up a religious exemption letter. Now, I personally think that it shouldn't just be a religious exemption. It should be a moral and philosophical exemption. Basically, you should not be forced to do something against your conscience. We live in the land of William Penn, who founded Pennsylvania, and he was a conscientious objector to many of the laws, he was a Quaker, that were going on in England at the time. And he spent many weeks in prison for refusing to renounce his beliefs. That's why he came to Pennsylvania and founded Pennsylvania. Kids, you can count this for your homeschool civics and history now. Parents, as you know, you're required to teach Pennsylvania history. So you're learning about William Penn and Pennsylvania history. You guys can check off another day of your 180 days for your Pennsylvania homeschooling on your log. But that's what I grew up with, and that's what I feel. But I also know that this was, I didn't know if I would win it. And I was like, all right, this could be a case that could go to the Supreme Court. So I'm going to make this as strong as I can. I'm going to seat this in religious beliefs. And I'm, personally, I'm a born-again Christian. Again, you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be religious to be a homeschooler, to be a member of HSLDA, to be an effective advocate for homeschooling. But I personally said, if I'm going to have to write this religious exemption, I'm going to give someone just the whole Bible story. And it was a 16-page religious exemption letter. So I never got a response back from the bureaucrats who were overseeing this. But long story short, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I left the federal government, gave up my cushy career job, and went to become the president of Parental Rights Foundation. You're going to hear later on from my friend Michael Ramey, who's the new president. But then long story short, last summer, Homeschool Legal Defense had an opening for an attorney, and I came on to serve the homeschool community here in Pennsylvania and in a couple other states. The biggest issue we're dealing with in Pennsylvania is what Jessica mentioned, how the federal government is pushing the State Department of Health, Commonwealth Department of Health, which is pushing the Commonwealth Department of Education, which is then pushing all 500 school districts to go and be the immunization police for homeschoolers. This is a complicated issue. It's never gone to court, so we're kind of giving each family personalized legal advice. If you have dealt with this, or if you're kind of struggling with how you should respond, I'd love to talk with you as well, and we'll have more information. There's other issues that are going on. We'd love to have you join Homeschool Legal Defense if you're not yet a member, but I'd love to talk with you. I'm getting the signal from Stevie because I want you to have plenty of time to work with them, to go and do your lobby visits. As you go and talk to elected officials, and when they hear you're a homeschooler, when they hear you're here for informed consent, particularly when it comes to medical issues, they're going to put a face with the issue. So when they make these votes, it's not going to be homeschoolers or Pennsylvania Coalition for Informed Consent. It'll be, I want to represent that mom, that dad, those kids who came to my desk on that Tuesday morning in Harrisburg in March in Pennsylvania. So that's why what you're doing here is so important. It's an honor to serve the homeschool community, but I'm passionate about also the medical freedom issue and would love to talk with you as well. With that, I'm going to yield the microphone to Stevie so you can find out what you're going to be doing next, but I'll be here till about 1:30 today, so if I don't get a chance to talk with you now, I'll be at the table in the back. Stevie, thank you so much.
Thank you.